Hey guys, it's TheTechGeek here and welcome to this PC build. Now this isn't anything special behind me here, but it is something that will do very well in an office environment doing day-to-day tasks and does have the longevity, meaning that it is going to last a good few years using the components that I have chosen. So I'm actually building this for someone else. This is actually for a company called Healthy Workstations. I'm in their offices right now to do this build, and they do a lot of office ergonomic products which you may be interested in, so don't forget to hit that link in the description and go and check them out, especially if you work a lot at a computer. There may be some equipment there that will benefit you in your office environment. So without further ado, let's go through the components that I have chosen. So as you can see, we do have Intel i3-3220 here. Now nothing special, just an Ivy Bridge processor, but it does give enough performance for the tasks that the user of this computer will be doing. So there's no need to go anything fancy, and this will do the job perfectly and should last a good few years. Next, in terms of RAM, I have chosen some Vengeance 8GB RAM. Now this is very high frequency, meaning you can get a lot of good speed out of this, and also, to be honest, it was just a really good deal on Amazon. That's why I chose it. I didn't particularly just go straight for a Corsair Vengeance, but it was a really good deal on Amazon. It was about £50, so there we are. There's some 8GB DDR3 RAM. Next, guys, we'll get to the motherboard itself. This is an Asus P8B75MLX. This is a Ivy Bridge compatible motherboard, meaning it can do all the i3, i5 and i7. It is a micro ATX motherboard, meaning that you can fit it into even smaller cases if needs be. Now this case luckily can do normal ATX and micro ATX, but as I said, it was another good offer on this motherboard that I really just couldn't say no to, so this is the motherboard that I chose. It's still got very good performance and will be exactly what we need for this build. Next, in terms of space, hard drive space, normally in most of my builds that I've done or will do, we'll normally have an SSD for the C drive, meaning that you can boot it really fast. But to be honest, this just really isn't needed in this case, and it was all about cost when it came to building this computer. I wanted to try and get it as cost effective as possible, so I've just gone with a Western Digital Green 1TB SATA 3 hard drive. It's still going to give you plenty of space and a decent amount of performance to keep your computer running smoothly. So there we are. That was a good deal on that one as well. That's why I chose that one. In terms of the CD drive, now this PC build actually doesn't have a CD drive, but you're probably going, well, why is there one here? Well, this is actually from my own build. This is a Sony standard DVD drive, nothing mega, but I do have it here just because I'm going to have to briefly install it as the OS, which is Windows 7 we're going to be installing this build. This will have to be installed through the CD drive, so yes, this is going to be temporary installed just for that and then taken straight back out. As to be honest, in day-to-day office use, CDs aren't used so much anymore. Software is normally loaded onto a computer through the internet, so there really isn't any need for that. So yeah, this is just temporary. When it comes to power, didn't need to go anything special. This Cooler Master 500 watt will give us plenty of power for this build. It's just going to do us nicely, and it's going to give us a little extra power if we do want to add maybe an extra graphics card in the future to expand and add extra monitors if the workspace does demand that, but at the moment it doesn't. But still, this gives us plenty of expansion if we do need that later on. Now, the final piece is obviously the computer case, which I'm not going to open just yet. As the first part of the build, we're actually going to do it outside the case to make sure all the components are working properly. So I have in here an Antec One Case, a very, very good case. Also not mega in size. It was important that I tried to keep the size of the build down as much as possible, as space is limited, but also keep some good features on here for the price. Now this does support USB 3.0, which is obviously, looking into the future, very important, as USB 3.0 will become ever more popular. Yet again, look in the future, trying to get things in here that will last for a good few years. So I did choose this. It comes with 2 case fans installed, which is even good for cooling. So yeah, this is a really good case to choose. Now, without further ado, we're just going to switch back when I'm going to sort of put all the components into the motherboard and do this outside of the case to do a test boot, just to make sure that everything is running fine and there's no component problems, because you really don't want to have to put all your components on the motherboard, put them all into the case, fit everything nicely, and then try to boot it and find that some of the components don't work. That's the worst way to do it. So if you find out first, then you're not wasting your time by installing it all into the case. So yeah, let's do that. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a temporary workstation here. Now, you take the motherboard itself out of this anti-static bag. Now, whatever you do, do not put the motherboard on top of this bag. The whole point of the bag is it draws static from the outside and sort of shields it out. And then you have the inside bit, which actually protects it from static. So, yeah, do not put it on top, otherwise you highly risk putting static into the motherboard, and that is definitely not a good thing. So, as you can see, we've got the CPU here, which I'm just going to open up. I'm not going to show that on camera, but I'm going to open that up so that we can fit the CPU into the slot there. That's the first thing we're going to do. It's normally the best thing to do first. Okay, so here is the CPU itself. Now, I've put the CPU fan to the side. Yes, in this build, we are going to be using the stock Intel fan. Now, that's because, really, this build isn't going to be requiring an awful lot of power, as I said. So there's no need for any external CPU, because especially with the new turbo boost technology on the CPU and with the software, you can actually make sure that your CPU can boost itself up if needs be, if it's in its heat restraint, within its restrictions. Basically, if it's cool enough to do so, it will turbo boost. But if your fan, isn't good enough, then it won't do that. So you're not running any risk of overheating your CPU, but at the same time, you're going to get the best power out of it. So that's a very good thing. So yeah, let's take this out of. The first thing actually I should do is unclip this on the motherboard here. Now, it is important that you just don't get rid of the plastic bit for now. If you just lift this up, then you can reveal the slot there. That's where it goes in. Now, it is really important. I'm going to zoom in here so you can really see. It is really important that you sort of look at the slot and figure out exactly where your CPU will go into. Now, there's normally a little point on there that you can sort of match up and see where it's going to go. Okay, you can sort of see where the little notches are on the board. On the side here, there are some notches here, and then there's some gaps on the CPU itself here and here. So you can sort of line them up, and then, I know it's not focusing, I do apologize. Oh, there we are. You can sort of line them up then, and put them in exactly as it should be. So, yeah, don't worry about it too much. Just slowly lower it down in the slot, and there we are, that's in. So once you've done that, you can slowly then lower the lid. And then what you need to do then is push back to make sure it slots back in. And then you push the arm downwards with some force. Fair amount of force, and then push it in. And there we are, it is installed. As you can see, this just pops off, and then you can put that away. So there's no point taking that off any sooner than you need to, as that will just pop off in the installation. And there we are. That is installed. Okay, so it's now time to install the CPU fan. Now, as you can see here, I've sort of looked at the cable and make sure that before I put it down, that the cable's at the right side to where the CPU fan header is, which is right here. So that I know that once I put it in place, then, I'm fine to go with plugging it in. I don't have to mess around with the cable. And, you could always turn it around, different ways to make sure that it's always slotting in near to the fan header, so that you can just plug that in nice and easily. Now, all you need to do with this it's really easy with this one. Just place it on top. And then all I would do then is, once you know it's sort of in place, is push it down in a diagonal fashion. So basically, you push down one corner until you hear it click. Then you push down the opposite corner until you hear that click. Then you hear push this one, then this one. Just to make sure that you're sort of not putting too much pressure in one half of the CPU at any point. That's really all you need to do there. So that's in place, and then all you need to do then is literally just pop the fan header on, like so, and then there you are. You have installed the CPU fan. Okay, so it's time to install the RAM. Now, if your motherboard does have multiple DDR2, DDR3 slots, or just multiple RAM slots in general, you might want to find out, especially if you're slotting more than one RAM piece, which we're only fitting one. This is just one 8GB. If you were fitting 8, but you're fitting 2 times 8, you might want to see which ports, using your motherboard manual. Don't be scared to use that thing. That thing is there to help you. So you might want to consult that just to see which slots is best to put it in. But as I'm only putting one in, I don't really need to look at that, and these are both DDR3 slots, so I know I'm good to go. And now all you need to do is see where the little nodules are on the RAM slots themselves, and then just line them up with the little gap you have on the RAM, and then just line them up. Once you've pulled these down, of course, There's only one on this side, so yeah, just put it in. So you may want to, since this one doesn't have 2 clips, it only has one on the right. If you just push into the right clip more than anything else, then there you are, that slots in. So there you are, that's fitted. Okay, as this build doesn't have a graphics card, there's no need for me to try and put that in, and that's something I would put in at this stage just to make sure that is working as well. But as that doesn't have it, really now all I need to do is put the power to the motherboard so that we can do a test boot. So yeah, now this is, as I said, a Cooler Master 500 watt power supply. Now what they try and do with the cables here is you can get some modular ones where you just plug in the cables you need. Obviously this is not modular, but what they do is they do break up the cables so you can easily see what's needed. For instance, this is your main motherboard power all bundled into one. Then you have your PCI power, and then you have your other power ports that you're going to need. So basically at the moment we only need this one because we only need to power the motherboard. We've got no other ports to power, so this is all we're going to need. Now I'm going to show you where these go in a second. So this is really quite simple. You really just have to sort of match up. It's a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. It has to only go in one way. So you find, this looks very similar here, so this must go here, and then you just look at the shapes, the different variants of shapes. Let's see if I can zoom in on that. Not too well, but yeah, maybe you can see it. So you sort of just got to match it up, and this can only go in one way, especially the clips has to be on the outside as well, so that's a big giver as well. So you literally should just be able to slot that in like so. And then, as you can see, this little bit here then adds on to that at the end, and then just goes in here as well. It is made up of 2 little bits, not 1. So you just got to sort of match that up as well. Now this bit goes here. Push that both in, and there we are. We've installed that bit of power. Now all I've done is put power to the motherboard as a whole. I do actually need to put power on to the CPU, otherwise that won't work at all. So that is just, there's another strand that's been divided up as well, and there's 2 here, but you only just need 1. So you just literally line it up, same as before, and then just slot it in like so. And there we are, that's done. Okay, so basically I've hooked up the power, I've added in a monitor, as you can see. This is all ready to be hooked up. Now fortunately I had to unplug my main light, which I was using to help light up the shot for you for doing this, so unfortunately it's going to be a little bit grainy, a little bit darker than usual, but there we are. Now everything's hooked up. I just need to flick the switch on the back of the power supply as so, and you won't be able to see. I'm going to try and get everything in shot here, which is a little bit difficult. As you can see, there'll be a little green light which is now illuminating at the back of the motherboard. That means the power's going through fine. That's a good thing. Now, we don't have a on button on the motherboard of sort because basically it's not hooked up into the case, and that's where the on button is. So we basically have to mimic that. You can just use a screwdriver. You're not going to do any damage, don't worry. And you basically break the circuit where the on button would be, and it should power up. Fingers crossed. And there we are, that's done, as simple as. The fan is now spinning, as you may be able to see, I don't know, but it is all spinning. We've got the Asus logo there on the monitor, and there we are. No keyboard installed, of course, we've not got anything in there, but nothing else. No warnings going up there. Everything seems to be fine. It's recognizing the full 8 gigs of RAM. It's recognizing the CPU absolutely fine. You can see 3.3 gigahertz. Let me zoom in here. You can maybe see. Yeah, it's really hard to see, but it is actually recognizing everything on there as fine. So that's really all good. Everything's there. Seems to be as it should. So there we are. We can now concentrate on getting this into the case. Okay, to save time, I've actually put the power supply in already. It literally just goes in, a couple of screws and you're in. There's nothing complicated with that. This case does have a dust filter on the bottom, so I've made sure to mount the fan underneath, and it has plenty of clearance underneath the case so air can flow easily into the power supply. So it's something you may want to consider. You may want to flip it the other way depending on what case you have. But now it's time, before we put the motherboard in, to put the I/O shield in. This had some wrapping on, I've just taken off, and basically you just make sure you're putting it in the right way. Look at your motherboard, the way it's supposed to go in. This way is the correct way for this one, and you literally just hold it up and clip it in place. There we are. Okay, now the next step before you put your motherboard in, it's very important for you to have a look at these standoffs. As you can see, they're gold here, and make sure that they are sort of lined up in where the holes on your motherboard are. So that's where the screws are going to be going in. So you look at your motherboard, maybe hold it up a little bit if you need to, and then make sure that you do have the standoffs in the right place. If you don't have them in the right place, then you're going to make things harder for you later on. So make sure that is good. Now, this one is actually set up for a full ATX board, and this is a micro ATX board, so we will need to move a couple of the bottom ones down here up to the next slots here so that they will fit in just fine. So yeah, that's all I'm going to do. Now, really the best way to do this would be to lay the case down and then do it from there. But as I wouldn't be able to get this camera angle just right, I'm going to do it from this angle. So I know people in the comments may be like, you should be doing it the other way. I'm fully aware of that. But I should be okay as long as I'm just careful with it, that's all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of screws in ready so that I can just quickly, especially because I'm putting it in this way, I can just quickly tighten them in as soon as I get the motherboard in place. So I'm going to put one, you probably can't see, but I'm putting some screws in place. So I'm going to lift this in place. I'm actually going to use it's fine to use this, the cooler block to hold it by. It's probably one of the most secure things at the moment. And we want to push it right in the corner here. Okay, I had to lie it down. It just wasn't going to work. I wasn't able to get any screws in. I was all hands and basically trying to hold it in place and get the screws in. It just wasn't going to work. So as you can see here, I can now hold in the camera myself, so I can't sort of keep it positioned while I'm doing anything. I put a screw in the top left corner. Now I have to put the screws in all the corners just to hold it in place. Then once I've done that, I can stand the computer back up and we're ready to go. So there we are. As you can see, now the motherboard is installed and we can go and start plugging in things like the power, things like the front I/O and the USB header. There's USB 3 ports on the front, so those of course need to be plugged in, and I will basically do those now. I'm not sure which order I'm going to do them, but yeah, let's go and do that. Okay, so we routed the main power into the motherboard. Now I would like to have routed the CPU power around the back, as in the sped up video you probably just saw that, but unfortunately it just wouldn't quite reach and it wouldn't just quite work right, so unfortunately we do have to have this cable going here. I may move this at a later date, but for now I'm just going to have it plugged in here, and as you can see the main power's plugged in there. I'm going to put the RAM back in, and then we can sort of look at doing the front I/O and all those other ports as well. As USB 3 is still fairly new and a lot of computers still don't have them, I thought I'd just go through this part of the setup. Now, as you can see here, this cable comes from the front port on the case, and this case actually gives you an option to plug in a USB 2 or a USB 3. If you do have this option, make sure you don't plug both of them in, as it is a one or the other thing. So as we're going to use USB 3.0, it does clearly say there that it is USB 3. Now, the USB 3 port is always a blue port, and it is on this motherboard just underneath the power here, and you just plug it in there and then you're ready to go, and the front ports are ready to use. So it's very self-explanatory. Now you may be wondering what all these little cables here are for. Now, as you're able to read, some of them actually are labeled and they do say what they are. Now this one isn't zooming in very well, focusing in very well, but they are all doing different things. As you can see, that one says HDD LED, power LED, and they're all for the power button, all the front buttons and LED indicators you have on the case, and they go onto the motherboard down here at the bottom. And now some motherboards will come with a little adapter to make it easier for you to plug all these little ones in. This one doesn't, but if you look closely on the motherboard, you can actually see it does say where each one needs to be plugged in, so just follow that, and yeah, it's really simple. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so where are we right now in the build? Well, basically everything is pretty much connected apart from the hard drive. That's what we're going to do next. But as you can see, all the cables from the front here are all going and linking up. You've got all the front panel connectors there, the HD audio connected there. You have, I had to get, something I did have to buy. I had to literally just go out and get this because I realized that the motherboard doesn't have CPU fan headers to support the fans in the case, and there's no other way of linking them up. I had to get a little Molex to CPU fan, or just fan in computer fan in general, splitter, so it takes this and then gives it all cables. And you can see I've hooked up the top fan here, and when I put the side panel back on, I'll be hooking that cable up as well. Now basically I had a problem putting the fan on the front of the case right here. So I did try with different ways of doing it and trying to figure out which way I wanted the airflow to go. So I decided that the air coming in the side of the case actually wasn't such a bad thing. So the air is going to be coming into the side panel straight onto the motherboard. So the cool air is going to be blown onto the motherboard, and here's where the fan is here cooling the CPU. So that's going to be quite good. And then as heat rises, then I've made the fan on top of the case to be the extractor fan, and then the heat will then be blown out to the top of the case. And I think that's the better way to do it, really, because as I said, heat rises. So if we have, as we've only got two case fans, to have this one on the top being the one to blow the air out, I think that will be the best way of doing it. So yeah, now it's time to put the hard drive in, so let's do that. Okay, so this features a toolless hard drive installation method. Now that isn't something new to me, you know, pretty much everyone I've done has been toolless, but something that is new is the way that they've gone about it. Rather than having the clips already fitted here, they actually give you the clips to put on your hard drive yourself. Now I'm just going to do this for you because I've already done it and I thought this looked quite cool, and I've not seen a way of doing it like this before, is actually put the clips on the side like so. So they just clip on, and you clip them on both sides, obviously. Trying to show you and do it, which isn't easy. There we are. You just clip them on like so. And then all you've got to do then is, once you've done that, and the clips actually do stay in place, which for some reason that doesn't want to happen, all you do then is literally just slide it in the slot, push it in, makes a click, and there you are, your hard drive is installed. Nice and easy. It's quite a good way of doing it. Some other ways I've seen in the past with the trays can be a little more fiddly, but that is literally very easy indeed. So yeah, now it's time to plug in the power and the SATA cable. So basically you always have two sets of cables with your motherboard if it supports 6 gigabit a second data transfer. So normally the white, especially on Asus motherboards, the white and black top means it's 6 gigabit a second, and the normal black means it's 3 gigabit a second. But if you do read it, it does actually say on it 6 gigabyte a second SATA, so that's an easy way of checking which one you plug it in. And as this hard drive, even though it still is a mechanical hard drive, nothing like SSD, it does support that 6 gigabit a second data transfer speed. You're better off using it if you have the capability of doing it, because you know it's just going to help with general day-to-day speed. So plug that in. This other end is going to go into the motherboard, but then you just plug in your power connector like so. This comes from your PSU straight into your hard drive, and that's what powers your hard drive. So now it's time to plug that into the motherboard. It's important when you do this that you actually do look at your motherboard manual. Now, you may actually think, you know, oh, which one is the 6 gigabyte a second port? You may have a 6 gigabit a second cable, but if you're plugging it into a 3 gigabit a second port, then you're not going to be getting the speed. So it's important that you do check your motherboard manual, and as you can see here, it does say that the bottom one there is a 6 gigabyte a second port. So this is the one we're going to plug it into. Yeah, let's hopefully get this one in. Just trying to figure out the best way of doing it. That way, probably. Okay, so there we are. Just plug that straight in there. And there we are. The hard drive is now fully installed. Okay, so the PC is mainly built. There's nothing else to add into it. It's all pretty much all there. Now, the CD drive is going to be put in, but it's not going to be put into the case. It's just going to be temporarily installed to get the operating system on, and then removed completely. So there's no point in putting all the case panels back on, as it will just be removed straight away. So but apart from that, it's pretty much built. There's nothing else really to add on that, so I'm going to leave the video there, guys. Thank you for watching. I'm not going to go through all the sort of operating system installation things, because that's all up to you what you want to put on it, and it's pretty boring. You just put your operating system disk in, you boot from that, install your operating system, and you're ready to go. So there's nothing really that I need to put in the videos. It's long enough already. So thank you for watching. As I said, don't forget to hit that like button if you did enjoy it. Share it with anyone who may be looking to build a PC, or just want some general advice slash an insight into what it's like to build a PC. Then share it with them. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.